I see a million podcasts on relationships. Who the hell taking care of babies? Well, we're going to talk about it, and I hope you get mad because we're going to tell you how to fix it and help you be a better parent. Hi, and thanks for coming back to check us out on Please Defend Your Position. We have Miss Monica here today, and we're going to talk about parents being completely responsible for their children's actions. I happen to believe that as a parent, it is your responsibility for what your children grow up to be. Now, Miss Monica has heard this and she disagrees, and I'm gonna tell you why I believe it is, and she can defend her position on this. I believe you're responsible for what your children turn into, just like a phone. You get a phone out of the box, outside of it being a little, maybe it's a malfunction with it, outside of that, you're responsible for every app you put on it. If you let somebody else handle it or control it, they drop a virus in it, and you got a whole other something to deal with. But besides that, I think that's on you. You disagree, Ms. Monica?
I do.
Okay.
To a certain degree. I think that, especially when these kids get older, you understand what I'm saying? You can put all the good stuff into your kids. You can be great examples for them. You can tell them not to lie. You can tell them not to steal. You can tell them to listen to their teachers. You can tell them to do everything and pray over them constantly. At the end of the day, it is the child's responsibility to digest that and follow the parents' rules and regulations. I can't tell you how many parents that I've heard, oh, my child don't do that. I raised them differently and they don't do that. What your child does in front of you can very well be polar opposite of the behavior they distribute outside of your household. That does not make you a bad parent. You've done what you're supposed to do. You've monitored their friends. You make sure they get to school every day. You take them to church every Sunday. You do Bible study on Wednesday with them. You show them what a healthy relationship is with their second parent. But at the end of the day, our society has a great and heavy hand on our kids outside of our monetization.
And if you allow society to have a greater influence on your child, then shame on you. Because with all of that said, you're absolutely correct in that. However, it is still the parent's responsibility. Parents can say all the time, well, I didn't raise my child to do this or that. I told them not to lie, but how many times did they hear you lying? I told them not to steal, but how many times did they see you take something that you didn't necessarily think was taken, but it was? Because more is caught than taught. So if you have an environment in your house that this is what we do, this is how we live, it's certain things they won't even have a taste for. I know a grown ass men right now who don't eat vegetables. Well, you don't eat vegetables because your mother never introduced it to you. So that was a bad parenting move. At the same time, I know 3-year-olds who love asparagus because that was something that was always introduced. So whatever you make familiar, you make normal becomes a normal. If you raise hell in your household, then your child will be conditioned to hell-raising situations. If your household is calm and peaceful and clean and neat, then it bothers their spirit when they're around that kind of stuff. But people don't realize that what you're exposing your children to is defining them. That's why I don't even believe children should go to daycare. That's a whole nother situation for another day. But when you have these little precious beings, it is so we don't take care of them and protect them enough. The things we allow children to be exposed to, you would not allow, like I said, your phone to be exposed to, or your computer, your new Mac. You're gonna be like, wait a minute, what site you going on? I don't know, but that's not what we do. So these children will never get a taste for these things or never get it introduced unless a parent allows it. And so for that falls back on the child. Now, once a person becomes an adult, that is their choice at that point. But I promise you, see, people can say all the time, well, I did this, I went to church, but a tree is known by the fruit it bears. So I don't care what you're talking about. Based on this fruit
I even gave up my career to be at home with my kids so I can be there with them around the clock. And so thinking that I'm making the right decision, because there's no way that if they are seeing my husband sacrifice everything and me sacrificing my career to be at home with them, and my husband being out of the house working all the time and having limited time to, you know what I mean? So there's no way that they can look at that and say, okay, we don't come from a hardworking family and a hardworking mom and a hardworking dad. But guess what? What I came to find out is just because you expose a kid to something does not mean that they're, how do they say, you can lead a horse to the water but you can't make him drink? Just because you expose that kid to these things, tell that kid, hey, look, this is what we're doing. See, this is how we move in this household. Wait a minute. This is how we move in this household. This is how we do things. This is how, we are setting you up for success. And if you want to do this, then this is how you do. That does not mean that child is going to follow those directions. And I'm not talking about little children. Little children are a little bit more moldable, but you'll still get little kids that still, as what we notice in our what we say in our community, excuse me for the stuttering, hard-headed. You know what I mean? We all have those kids who say, oh, a hard head gonna make us all bad. You know what I mean? So they gotta get it through. It takes a little bit more molding for some kids than others. Some kids fall in line, but all kids are not like that. So to say, say like, oh, if your kid don't do this, then you're responsible. That's a tough notion to push forward.
To talk on your first note with this about you have a child and you're doing this and that. Very often as human beings, not parents, just people, we are so eager to give what we think somebody needs or wants instead of giving them what they actually need. And it takes a now, again, I understand nobody's perfect. I would be a lie if I told you I've been a perfect parent. Absolutely, I'm not a perfect human being. However, you mentioned the lead a horse to water. My kids would tell you, in my house, I'm going to lead you to water. You can either drink it or drown. This is what we do over here. Because it's not an option. I don't believe in punishment. Once you've done something, now this has to be changed. I believe in busting the trust. So we don't get on punishment and your phone will be taken away. Okay, so now you no longer can have a phone. No more. It's over. So whatever it is, and I kept teaching.
So you don't believe in redemption?
I do, but not in those things. Once something, if you bust, my term was bust the trust. Once you busted the trust, because I'm teaching them how life is. If you make a mistake and cut your finger off, it's not going to go back.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
So I took that time, that those little 18 years they were in my home, to be very clear about how the world will not be forgiven of these things. Not saying that you don't have intrinsic value. Not saying that I don't forgive you. But once you've broken something, it can never be back the same. So what you can do now, you can try another way, but this right here is over.
So let me ask you this.
Yes.
So all of this that you're saying, when your kid goes out there and gets himself in trouble or herself in trouble as an 18-year-old, are you responsible for that?
If they get themselves in trouble at 18, the law says that I am no longer responsible.
No, not the law. I'm saying you're their mom. You are their parent.
Even
to that kid turns 25 or 30 years old, you're still their parent.
Yes, but if my child goes out here and makes a decision that did not come from this household, I find that very hard to believe. And let me tell you why. I think that, again, when I talk to people, I've talked to literally thousands of people in my life about, different situations. Even guys who may have grown up in the quote-unquote perfect home you were talking about. When they started to do something, it was, I went over my cousin June in the house and,
right place, wrong time.
No,
or being in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know how many people are in bad positions right now that have that story?
No,
being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
As a parent, you have families, I had good friends. We could hang out all the time, but they were sucky parents. So guess what? My kids don't hang out with them. I got family members. I'm like,
So let me ask you something.
So I just because I think everybody related to somebody. Right. So again, because I'm so protective because I understand that between 18 and 25 will set the tone for the next 75 years of your life.
I agree.
I was so determined about what I have one child that I made to me, a deadly mistake. A deadly mistake. I should have never allowed her birth mother into her world. I should have never allowed her to even have contact with her birth mother. And since I did, it opened up another type of world for her.
Yeah, absolutely. But some things are predisposition too now. So let me ask you something though. Do you come from a solid family, your upbringing as a child?
My parents of origin were divorced. My mother remarried when I was 5 years old.
Loving household though? Yeah. I mean, loving. Okay. You ever snuck?
It was okay.
You ever snuck and got drunk, or snuck and smoked weed, or snuck and smoked cigarettes? Told you Jesus' little sister.
No,
because I did it all.
Let me tell you why.
I did it all, and my parents were dead set. We never were okay with that.
But you know what?
Up.
But this is the thing about it. It was never even something that my parents said don't do. But this is the thing. When you raise your children with a certain air, you don't do what common people do. You got what I'm saying? So that's the thing you have to get into your children. It's certain things you don't even have to talk. It's just certain things we don't do. We don't even talk about that. Throwing trash out the window, they've never seen it done. So they would never, so they look at other people.
So much easier said than done.
Because everything on earth is easier said than done. Everything. It's
so
easier
that's
to
what
say
I
gotta
mean
pee than actually go pee.
Right.
It's easier to say everything.
So I'm doing that thing again. So what I mean is it's easy to say, to hold people to these staples. But in a logical world, there's so many people in trouble right now, sitting in the prison system or so forth on, that have been in the wrong place, wrong time, or been with somebody that they shouldn't have been with, completely opposite from what they are normal to, and now they're being held accountable for the rest of them lives, for something that's gonna make a staple for the rest of their lives because they made one stupid mistake.
You know what? It's funny you say that. My son has this thing where he talks about being around because again our household was calm. Now he grew up with me. His father and I were not married, so he grew up in a household, which was for a topic for another day, how he grew up. But he's so funny because he's comfortable with how and the energy that he's very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
He's in college now, senior in college, and he'll say things like, "Mom, something was popping off and my Negro senses went off. I had to get it along." It's like,
it's time to go.
I gotta go.
I'm out of here. No, I get that.
That's the thing about it. And I just think it's just really important that we raise our children with a certain air about them. So certain things they will not do.
Yeah.
And again, even those wrong people and all that, it's because that was allowed.
Now, what I don't want you to get confused with me is, because like I said, I went through that position of parenting too, where I'm like, what am I doing wrong? He ain't listening to the teachers. Oh my God, they gonna think I'm this kind of parent and I'm that kind of parent. I do feel as though parents need to be held accountable to some degree. But also, that's such a double-edged sword, and that's what I said, in a perfect world. Because to some degree, also, kids are going to do what they are going to do. And sometimes they got to touch that fire to get burned.
They calculate the punishment. For me, I got a red Mustang when I turned 16. And I already knew curfew was never going to be missed because it was not going to be a joke that car was going to be parked forever. I had no doubt about that.
Baby,
so it wasn't going to be taken for a week or two. It was going to be gone. So I think when parents, when you waver on that,
yes,
when you end up with
we got to talk off the air. But yeah, I feel you, but we meet in the middle. I think with your position, we're in the middle.
I'm loving this. You got to come back and talk to us.
You and I both.
All righty. Well, Miss Monica came and defended her position today about this topic of parents being responsible for the children that you breed. And she disagreed with me. I disagreed with her. But once again, we were disagreeing without being disagreeable. If you like these topics, check out our links below and come back and have these same conversations with us. By the way, you might come and defend your position. Hit us up.